When it comes to money, there is a lot to manage. So it can be so easy to fall into cycles of being disorganized and getting overwhelmed. Now, what I call financial clutter includes everything from having too many bank accounts, to piles of credit card statements, to not knowing who you owe money to. Now, unfortunately, the longer you stay in cycles of having financial clutter, the harder it's going to be to get out of debt, to save money, and to invest money to ultimately build wealth. And that's because having financial clutter, just like any other kind of clutter in your life, leads to inefficiency and wasted resources like time, energy, and money. In this video, I'm going to cover 9 practical ways that you can start decluttering your finances and reducing your financial stress. Now, by definition, decluttering is the act of organizing, simplifying, and removing unnecessary items to create a more functional environment. Our goal is greater clarity, efficiency, and control over our finances. So, whether your finances are a hot mess right now, or maybe you get overwhelmed trying to manage it all, or you simply want to get a little more organized, you are in the right place. You've stumbled across the right video. For those new here, hello and welcome. My name is Lissa, and I'm an accredited financial counselor who wants to see more women of color building wealth. To be clear, anyone is welcome here, but my goal is to make sure that women of color feel included in discussions around money and building wealth. Now, before I hit you with those 9 ways to declutter your finances, I want to quickly talk about tools. To help organize and declutter your finances, you're going to need a little bit of a toolkit. So this toolkit is going to have both physical and digital tools. Now, if you're new to personal finance, you're a beginner, you've never really improved your finances intentionally before, or you've never really given thought to your money management system, then don't worry, you're not expected to get all of this in place overnight. I think the fact that you're here, willing to watch the video, and open-minded about incorporating some of these things is going to take you a long way. Figuring out your exact system is going to take some trial and error. So here are a couple of tools that might help you organize your finances. For physical tools, let's talk about 2 primary items to consider. Number 1, a folder or filing cabinet or physical space, a place to put your financial documents. Now, the reason for this is even though most things are handled online these days, there are still a lot of old school processes and systems that are going to require you to have physical paper. A lot of times tax forms get sent in the mail and are physical pieces of paper. You might get some settlement checks or dividend checks or any other checks in the mail that you might need to cash and you need a place to put them. You might have some legal contracts that have a financial component. So all in all, you want a safe place, an organized place to keep these documents. Number 2, another physical tool is a shredder. Now, I highly recommend getting a good quality shredder. And I mean like a paper shredder, not like Shredder from Ninja Turtles, obviously.
Tell me where Splinter is and I'll let you live long enough to watch him perish.
But I recommend a high quality one, and not just one of those cheap ones that go on the top of the trash can and end up overheating after 2 months. That's me speaking from experience. But I used to always go cheap thinking, I rarely use it. I don't want to spend too much on a shredder, but then it would always break. So for me, mine costs $240, but there are a lot of options out there. Now, for some digital tools to organize your finances, you're more likely than not going to need a combination of the following 3 things. Number 1, spreadsheets. So even if you don't like numbers or you never plan to write a formula in your life, you don't want to learn it, spreadsheets are so useful in tracking so many financial things besides just budgets. For example, keeping a list of all of your insurance policies or all of your debts or all of your income sources throughout the year so that you know who to expect W-2s and 1099s from. All of those things can be tracked in a spreadsheet. Number 2, a calendar. I am really big on using my calendar for various due dates or financial reminders. For example, instead of trying to remember when my Hulu free trial is going to end and I'm going to get charged, I'll put a reminder on my calendar before that expiration date or that due date to give me a notification. That reminder will say, hey Lisa, you got to decide whether or not you want to keep or cancel Hulu before you get charged. In that case, I'm not going to get charged for something that I didn't plan on buying just because I forgot I had a free trial. And number 3, apps. Using financial apps to organize your financial needs is a whole separate video. Maybe it's its own series. So I'm not going to dig too deep into it on here, but I'm specifically talking about things like budgeting apps, net worth tracking apps, and even password management apps. There are a lot of tools out there and apps that can help you manage your financial situation. All right, on to the meaty part of the video, 9 ways to declutter your finances. Now, I have split these into 2 groups because that's how my mind works, but we're talking about organizing and simplifying. The first 5 are related to getting organized, and the last 4 on the list are related to simplifying, like organizing your accounts and consolidating things. Tip number 1 to declutter: go paperless. As much as you can, opt into digital statements and go paperless when you can. Now, this can include your phone bill, utility bills, paychecks, bank account statements, credit card statements, and other financial related items. Now look, saving paper is cool and all, but the real benefit to going paperless for you as an individual is that you can more easily organize and search for documents when they're digital. There's a statement or receipt in your email inbox. You can categorize them into folders or labels. Pro tip: you can use filters on Gmail or rules on Outlook to automate some of this categorizing. For storing digital documents on your computer or the cloud, you also have the ability to organize files into folders. So yeah, you can have physical folders in real life, but at least these digital documents can be easily duplicated and backed up, and they can't get lost if something were to happen in your home. Now, for all things digital, just make sure that you implement cybersecurity as best as you can. So what I mean by this is make sure you use complex passwords for any financial related accounts. You want to make sure you use 2-factor authentication when it's available to you. You definitely want to avoid accessing any sensitive financial files on public Wi-Fi networks, and also make sure to back up your data when it's necessary. All right, on to number 2. Another way to declutter your finances is to organize your paper documents. So like I said when I was talking about tools, there are going to be some documents that you won't have the option to switch to paperless. Or maybe up until now you haven't had it paperless, so you have a bunch of old documents. So the first thing you want to do is gather all of your paper statements, your paper paychecks, or other financial related mail. Then you want to sort them by type. So that can be bank statements, credit card statements, bills, receipts, tax forms, etc., the miscellaneous group. Then the next step is to deal with the documents. So generally what I'm talking about here is, first and foremost, go back to tip number 1, and for each of these documents, see which of these can be delivered digitally in the future. So with the exception of receipts or smaller in-store purchases, most of these documents or statements that you have should have a paperless option depending on the company, or in the case of paychecks, depending on where you work. Now, for any of these statements, so bank statements, credit card statements, pay stubs, check to see if you can access old statements online in your account. Because if so, then you can go ahead and shred these ones because you already have access to them when you log into your account. Now for bills, you want to handle them a little bit differently. You want to go through them one by one and mark them as paid or unpaid so that you know which ones you still have to deal with. Similar to what you did with your bank statements and credit card statements, you want to check on your online account if these bills and previous bills can be accessed in the account. If you do have access to old ones and you've opted into paperless moving forward, then as soon as you've paid these, you can go ahead and shred those pieces of paper. Now, if you don't have access to these online, then you might want to scan them on a scanner or on your phone before you shred them, just so you have documentation for it. All right, now for tax forms. You definitely want to hold on to these for tax season, but some of them, like the ones from your bank accounts or investment accounts, should actually offer you ways to download them digitally as well. Now, for tax forms specifically, I would err on the side of caution and hold on to them. Don't go shredding them just yet. You want to make sure you get to tax season, file your taxes, and then maybe still hold on to them for a while. You want to make sure you have all your tax documentation tracked in some way before you go throwing these papers away. So far, I know this is a lot and we're only on number 2 of 9, but specifically when it comes to paper documents, just know that it gets better. This whole process of moving digital and dealing with the papers you already have, the bills, the statements, it's a lot at first, but once you get this system going, you're gonna deal with a lot less paper, and it might even be cathartic to start shredding these things. The key with the first 2 tips, number 1 and 2, isn't just simply to move your physical mess into a digital mess. What's gonna happen is as you make this transition, you're gonna have the opportunity to come up with some kind of organization system, whether that's in your email inbox, on your computer, or a cloud hosting service, but it's gonna give you that opportunity to start organizing things as they come so that in the future, everything is a lot simpler. All right, let's move on to number 3, make lists. First off, I have such a hard time saying lists. So make lists, plural of list. This is where spreadsheets come in handy, one of the tools that we talked about at the beginning of the video. Now, if you have an existing budgeting spreadsheet or some kind of financial spreadsheet, you can feel free to add a new tab to it and use the same one. Otherwise, start a new spreadsheet altogether. Now, if you're like,
Lisa, I hate spreadsheets. I'll never open it, and I prefer to write things down.
then by all means, feel free to do that instead. Just know that sometimes lists are harder to maintain and organize on paper and much easier to lose. All right, so what do I mean by making lists? Well, oftentimes in finance and in life, we lose track of everything. I'm not gonna cover budgeting or tracking expenses in this particular video, but on a broader level, I want you to start making lists for the following things besides just your budget and expenses. Because all of these things are part of your financial life and they're important too. You wanna make a list of all of your debts. What companies or individuals or people do you owe money to? You also wanna make a list of your insurance policies. What active policies do you have? Who are your insurance providers? Is it through a job or is it something that you pay on your own? You also want to make a list of all of your sources of income. Where have you received income this year and maybe last year? When you start to know where all of your money is coming from, whether that's your W-2 job, contract work, dividends from stocks, interest from bank accounts, when you know where this money is coming from and you track it, you'll know what tax forms to expect at the end of the year. All right. And my favorite, which we're gonna touch on a little later in the video, but subscriptions. You wanna make a list of all of the expenses you pay on a regular basis, whether that's monthly, annually, or another time frame. What subscriptions do you pay for? All right, decluttering tip number 4. We're still talking about organizing here. Number 4 is automated savings, AKA paying yourself first. This is one of my favorite methods in my money management system. So the quick definition of paying yourself first is anytime new money hits your bank account or comes into your life, like a paycheck, you want to direct money towards saving and investing first before you pay any other bill. Now you might be like, how is automating my savings a decluttering method? Well, remember what I said at the beginning of the video. When we're talking about financial decluttering, our goal is greater clarity, efficiency, and control over our finances. So anything automated, anything you can automate with your finances is gonna help you with efficiency. That is less time and energy spent making decisions about your money. So before you can automate into savings in a real meaningful way, you definitely have to make sure you're in a position where you are bringing in more money than you spend. So typically when you approach your finances and start to get organized for the first time, one of the logistical steps you have to do is understand your cash flow. So this is kind of related to a budget, but it's actually looking at what you take in a given month versus what goes out. So you want to know your income versus your expenses. Now, if you're in a solid position and you are spending less than you make, then you can set up automated savings in a couple different ways. Number 1, you can set an automatic transfer between your accounts. So many banks will allow you to set up a recurring automated transfer of money from one account to another. So a lot of people like to set this up, this automatic transfer, on payday. And that obviously only works for people who have a consistent or predictable pay schedule. Now, aside from automatic transfer, another way to automate savings is through direct deposit. So if you get paid by an employer and you get a paycheck that's sent directly into your checking account, you can check with your employer if you can set up a second account. So this way your paycheck will immediately be split between these two accounts, and you can pick a smaller amount to go directly into your savings. All right, moving on to number 5 on the list to declutter your finances, automated bill pay. So again, automation is a means to save you time and energy. And there are ways to incorporate this when you are paying regular bills that you get on a regular recurring basis. So a good way to start incorporating some automated payments on your bills is to first focus on the accounts that you must pay first. For example, your utilities and your phone bill are probably more important than Netflix and Hulu or anything like that. The reason you don't want to just jump in and automate everything is that unless you have a great handle on your expenses, you don't want to forget about all the things you're paying for, especially if it's coming out directly from a bank account rather than a credit card. So for your utilities and your phone bill, you can typically do it through your provider by setting up auto pay with a bank account or a credit card. Now, 2 quick things to point out. Number 1, if you opt to use a credit card because you want credit card points, or maybe you typically use credit cards for simplicity and security, then just make sure that there's no additional fee to pay through credit cards. There are some bills out there that if you elect to use a credit card instead of debit or ACH, they'll charge you more to cover the credit card fees. So just make sure you understand your options. And number 2, if you opt to use a bank account for an electronic or ACH transfer for any of your automated bills, then make sure you're always in a position with your finances where you have enough money in your accounts. If you still struggle with things like overdrawing from your accounts or overspending, then I wouldn't jump to trying to do automated bill pay, but you can bookmark this decluttering tip for later. All right, 5 down, 4 to go. And now we're gonna move on to the second part of the list, which is simplifying things. But real quick, if you haven't already, please hit this video with a like if you've gotten anything out of it so far, and make sure you subscribe because it's gonna help me reach more people. All right, number 6, in order to declutter and simplify your finances, we want to audit your subscriptions. In summary, what I mean is you wanna check to make sure that you're only paying for things that you actually want and that bring value to your life. I suggest doing this little audit at least once every 3 to 6 months, but you can pick what works for you. So how do you go about auditing your subscriptions? Now, first, you need a list of everything you subscribe to, which you would have already done if you did tip number 3 in this video, which was make lists. So in order to gather this information, you can look at places like your credit card statements, your bank statements, your email inbox, and you can look at your phone to see if you have any subscriptions to any apps. Now, once you have this list, what are you actually doing for this audit? Well, that's what I call it, but honestly, this step is up to you. I believe that this is more of an exercise on conscious spending more than it is anything else. So you want to go down that list of all of your subscriptions and ask yourself a couple of questions. Do I use this subscription? If so, do I still want this subscription? And finally, if so, what value does it bring to my life? Now, if you're lukewarm or cold about something, or it's something that you never use, then you want to consider pausing it or canceling it. Remember, you can always resubscribe to things if you realize you're missing it in your life and that you still want it or need it. In the meantime, pausing or canceling is going to save you a little bit of money. Number 7, unsubscribe from marketing emails. I swear, this is something I try to do every day so that I can get less emails, but I must sign up for things without knowing it, or I just get added to things I didn't sign up for because I keep getting subscribed to email marketing lists. Now, this might not be something that applies to you if you normally keep thousands of emails in your inbox or you organize it in your own way. For me personally, I'm an inbox zero kind of person, so I do keep my inbox clean and I pretty much glance or look at most messages that come in. So I want to make sure that my email inbox is free and clear of all this unnecessary stuff that I'm not going to buy, that I don't want to see, because why? I don't want to spend money on things that I don't want or need. So for those of you who do get a lot of marketing emails and it's just promotion after promotion or sales email after sales email, then I would recommend that you hit unsubscribe. This is just gonna reduce the clutter and advertisements that come your way, which will help you ultimately spend less. Now, here's a pro tip if you don't wanna miss out on promotions and things like that. Personally, I set up a filter in my Gmail that skips the inbox and marks a email as read. So yes, this means that I'm not gonna see an email come in real time, and I could miss a good deal or a sale. But what happens is if I'm in the market for something, I will do a search in my inbox or go to that filter to see if there's a coupon or something that I missed. For example, Sephora. I still subscribe to those emails, and if I need to get something from there or want to get something, I'll check my inbox to see if there are any promos going on. All right, final tip on this is if you ever sign up for a marketing list because you wanted to get some kind of freebie or a promo code, then make sure you unsubscribe right after, unless you really want to stay on that list because you think those emails will provide value. Now, if you're on my list, I'm not telling you to unsubscribe, but if you ever felt like I was trying to sell too much and I wasn't providing value in other ways, then you got to protect yourself. So at the end of the day, I respect it. All right, number 8, to declutter and simplify your finances, reorganize your bank accounts. All right, so this is another one on this list that literally needs its own video. Actually, this one and the last one that I'm gonna get to needs its own video. But I do wanna bring this up because in my work as a financial counselor, I often see that people have a bunch of bank accounts that don't really provide any added value. If you are often overwhelmed by your finances and your bank account structure contributes to it, like you have too many accounts, you don't know what you're doing with them, then this is a situation when you might want to consider simplifying it. A common myth with bank accounts is that it has some impact on your credit, and that's just not the case. So it is okay to close bank accounts if you need to. Now, there is not one correct, proper way to organize your bank accounts. So I can't really give you a rule of thumb, but I do want to talk about some signs that you might want to look out for that tell you you gotta reorganize your bank accounts, maybe close a few. 1, you often get hit with monthly maintenance fees for not holding a sufficient minimum balance. Maybe you keep less than $100 in your account all of the time. Maybe you rarely use the account at all. And also, if it's an account that doesn't give you any unique features you don't already get at another account, then maybe you can close it. Examples: debit cards, automatic bill pay, or other features. All right, finally, I should have made this list shorter, but you know what? I'm here to help you guys. So, number 9, last one on the list, review your credit. Now, there are a lot of reasons I think it's important to keep tabs on your credit by looking at your credit report. Specific to decluttering your finances, your credit report is actually one great centralized place to view all of your credit-related information. So the goal here for you is to have clarity. Once you have clarity on your credit, you can take further actions to improve your finances. So in the United States, you are entitled to one free credit report from each of the 3 major credit bureaus every 12 months. This means in a 12-month period, you can pull a credit report from Equifax, you can pull one from Experian, and you can pull one from TransUnion. Now, what this credit report has is all of your debts, your loans, and your credit accounts. And if you go back to number 3 in this video where I told you to make a bunch of lists, you can use this credit report to double check your debts list. You can double check all of the loans you have and credit accounts that you have. Now, I would suggest spreading out these reports every 4 months instead of pulling them all at once, because in theory, they should have the same information. Once in a while, there are errors, but generally they should have the same information. Now, once you have reviewed your credit, you can make decisions of whether or not you should simplify your accounts through closing some of these accounts or consolidating debts. Now, like I said, this is one of those topics for another video. There's not one hard or fast rule on whether or not to close accounts like credit card accounts, because it can affect your credit in a negative way. at least temporarily. So if you have more questions about that or anything on this list, let me know in the comments. I am tired of talking and standing, so that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for those of you who watched till the end and made it this far. I really, really appreciate it. Until next time, peace out.